Good afternoon. This is All India Radio. I am Valsa Williams and with me is Anuja Kumar with the Midday News. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India accords highest priority to Sri Lanka as part of India's neighbourhood first approach. Prime Minister to address United Nations General Assembly this evening. Fourth edition of India-Japan Maritime Bilateral Exercise commences from today in the Arabian Sea. COVID recovery rate improves to 82.14%. And mortal remains of legendary singer S.P. Balasubramaniam laid to rest near Chennai with full state honours. In our special series on the occasion of the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, we begin this bulletin with Bapu Ki Baat on communal harmony. In a post-prayer speech at Shodhpur in West Bengal, Mahatma Gandhi had said that one who believes in God does not fear anyone but God.
जो ईश्वर के भक्त रहते हैं, ईश्वर से ही डरते हैं, दूसरा किसी का डर नहीं रखते हैं, सब चीज हक से ही करने वाले हैं, वो बहुत बलवान है, सबसे बलवान वो हो जाते हैं, उनको गुंडा भी सता नहीं सकते, लेकिन गुंडा वो उनके सामने सीधे हो जाते हैं, ये न्याय है। दूसरा मैं कोई जानता नहीं हूँ चारा कि जो आप लोगों को बता सकूं।
And now the news in detail. A virtual bilateral summit was held today between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Sri Lankan counterpart Mahinda Rajapaksa. The summit was Prime Minister Modi's first such virtual engagement with a neighbouring country and also Prime Minister Rajapaksa's first diplomatic engagement with a leader of a foreign country after he was sworn in as Prime Minister in August this year. PM Modi congratulated his counterpart on winning the elections in his country.
हमेशा की तरह आपकी पहली ऑफिशियल विजिट भारत में आपका स्वागत करके हमें बहुत खुशी होती। वह निमंत्रण हमेशा आपके लिए रहेगा। वर्तमान स्थिति को देखते हुए मुझे खुशी है कि हम यह वर्चुअल समिट कर रहे हैं। इस समिट के लिए आपने मेरा निमंत्रण स्वीकार किया, इसके लिए मैं आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देता हूं। मैं आपको प्रधानमंत्री पद ग्रहण करने के लिए बधाई देता हूं। संसदीय चुनावों में एसएलपीपी की भारी जीत के लिए भी आपको फिर से बधाई देता हूं।
Speaking on the occasion, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said India accords highest priority to its relation with Sri Lanka as part of India's neighbourhood first approach and Sagar doctrine. He said the ties between the two nations are 1,000-year-old.
जनता का आपके नेतृत्व में विश्वास दिखाती है। भारत और श्रीलंका के बहुमुखी संबंध हजारों साल पुराने हैं। मेरी सरकार की नेबरहुड फर्स्ट नीति और सागर डॉक्ट्रिन के तहत श्रीलंका से संबंधों को हम विशेष और उच्च प्राथमिकता देते हैं। भारत और श्रीलंका बिम्स्टेक, आईओआरए, सार्क मंचों पर भी घनिष्ठ सहयोग करते हैं। आपकी पार्टी की हाल ही की जीत के बाद भारत और श्रीलंका संबंधों में एक नए ऐतिहासिक अध्याय को जोड़ने का बहुत अच्छा अवसर बना है। दोनों देशों के लोग नई आशा और उत्साह के साथ हमारी ओर देख रहे हैं।
The virtual bilateral summit, held under challenging circumstances posed by COVID-19, testifies to the deep-rooted civilizational ties and shared heritage between the two neighbouring countries.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address the United Nations General Assembly, or UNGA, this evening. The theme of the 75th UNGA is "The Future We Want, the United Nations We Need," reaffirming our collective commitment to multilateralism, confronting the COVID-19 through effective multilateral action. The UNGA this year is being conducted mostly virtually as it is being held in the backdrop of the pandemic. The Prime Minister's address will be via a pre-recorded video statement broadcast at the UNGA Hall in New York. Amongst the priority issues for India in the UNGA session is to promote the strengthening of global action on counter-terrorism. India will push for more transparency in the process of listing and delisting of entities and individuals in sanctioned committees. Being one of the largest troop-contributing countries, India will seek to engage intensively in finalizing of mandates for UN peacekeeping mission. Another priority issue is continuing India's active engagement on issues related to sustainable development and climate change. India will also be a non-permanent member of the UNSC for 2 years, beginning 1st of January next year. The country's priorities include inclusive and responsible solutions for international peace and security, effective response to international terrorism, technology for all, and streamlining of peacekeeping. The 4th edition of India-Japan Maritime Bilateral Exercise, or JIMEX, begins in North Arabian Sea from today. The exercise is conducted biennially between the Indian Navy and the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force. The series of exercises commenced in January 2012 with a special focus on maritime security cooperation. The last edition of JIMEX was conducted in October 2018 off the Visakhapatnam coast. JIMEX 20 will be spread over 3 days and it is being conducted in a non-contact at-sea only format in view of COVID-19 restrictions. Naval cooperation between India and Japan has increased in scope and complexity over the years. The advanced level of operations and exercises planned are indicative of the continued upswing in the Indo-Japanese defense relations and continued efforts by both the governments to work closely for a more secure, open and inclusive global commons in accordance with the international regulations. The exercises will further enhance the cooperation and mutual confidence between the two navies and fortify the long-standing bond of friendship between the two countries. The 3-day-long exercises will showcase a high degree of interoperability and joint operational skills.
The Indian Air Force is all set to tackle any challenge in Ladakh region. Amidst tensions with China in the eastern Ladakh region, the Indian Air Force is fully prepared to tackle any challenge at the high-altitude line of actual control. More from our correspondent.
India is using its high-altitude air bases for advantage over its neighbors. Strategically located air base in Ladakh is equipped with all assault and defensive mechanisms. Forward air base in Ladakh is capable of operating Sukhois, MiGs, LCA, Tejas and the latest entrant in Indian Air Force, the Rafales as well. Apart from the fighters, the air base is also operating cargo aircrafts of Indian Air Force to provide logistic support with night operation facilities.
This forward base is fully equipped and ready to undertake operations by day or night facing both the fronts, be it the east or the west. The air warriors over here are highly trained and motivated enough to undertake operations by day and night 24/7 and 365 days. And we are standing by the motto of Indian Air Force to touch the sky with glory.
The forward airbase is strategically important to guard the country's airspace from the challenges. China is using its airbase in Hotan on east side and Skardu in Pak-occupied Kashmir on the west side.
The Indian Air Force is well trained and ready to undertake night operations from here. Owing to the modern platform of Indian Air Force, today we are ready to undertake all types of mission even from this forward airbase of the Indian Air Force. Also, our airmen, air warrior, they are well motivated to undertake any task that is given to them. And for us, nation comes first, always and every time.
Clamped between the two international borders, the Indian Air Force and its air warriors in Ladakh are geared up to tackle the challenges with futuristic preparations. Ramesh Chandra, All India Radio News, Leh.
You are listening to the Midday News on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India accords highest priority to Sri Lanka as part of India's neighbourhood first approach. Prime Minister to address United Nations General Assembly this evening. 4th edition of India-Japan Maritime Bilateral Exercise commences from today in the Arabian Sea. COVID recovery rate improves to 82.14%. And mortal remains of legendary singer S.P. Balasubramaniam laid to rest near Chennai with full state honours. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle @AIR News Alerts. All India Radio presents World News. News and views from across the globe. What happened? What is up next? The newsmakers and the highlights of the day. Every day at 10:20 p.m. on 100.1 FM, All India Radio.
The Health Ministry today said India had recorded more than 4 lakh teleconsultations on the e-Sanjeevani platform of the ministry across various OPDs and at Ayushman Bharat Health and Wellness Centres. In a tweet, the ministry said Tamil Nadu and Uttar Pradesh crossed 1 lakh teleconsultations each. It said e-Sanjeevani has provided various essential medical services during the pandemic to the beneficiaries, ensuring physical distancing. More than 18 states have utilized this mobile app to provide medical care to people. The government today said the country's COVID-19 recovery rate has improved to 82.14% during the last 24 hours. More than 93,000 COVID patients have recovered. The Health Ministry said the total number of recoveries has reached over 48,19,000. The constantly increasing recoveries have ensured that the actual caseload of the country has reduced and currently comprises only 16.28% of the total positive cases. Presently, the number of active cases in the country is 9,60,000, though COVID-19 tally has crossed 59 lakh. During the last 24 hours, 85,362 new infections were reported. Currently, India's case fatality rate is at 1.58%, which is one of the lowest globally. In the last 24 hours, 1,089 deaths have been reported, taking the toll to 93,379. According to ICMR, during the last 24 hours, more than 13,41,000 tests have been conducted. The total samples tested so far have reached over 7 crore 2 lakh.
National Pharmaceuticals Pricing Authority (NPPA) has decided to cap the ex-factory price of liquid medical oxygen at manufacturer's end to 15 rupees 22 paise per cubic meter exclusive of GST. The present situation of the COVID-19 has resulted in increased demand of medical oxygen in the country. NPPA said due to absence of price cap on liquid medical oxygen, manufacturers have hiked the prices to fillers. During the pandemic, supply of medical oxygen through cylinders has increased from 10% to around 50% of the total consumption. It said price regulation at this end is imperative for continued availability of medical oxygen across the country. Chemicals and Fertilizers Ministry said the demand of medical oxygen has gone up almost 4 times from 750 metric ton per day to 2,800 metric ton per day. The existing rate contracts of the state governments for oxygen purchase as applicable will continue in consumer interest. This will ensure availability of medical oxygen at consumer end at reasonable price, both at hospital level and through oxygen cylinders, especially to distant and interior districts. In Jammu and Kashmir, the government has started free teleconsultation general OPD services by specialists, MBBS doctors for the residents of J&K under National Teleconsultation Service. Our Jammu correspondent reports that people can avail these services from home by registering online on web portal esanjeevaniopd.in. People can also download and install eSanjeevani OPD app from Google Play Store. The facility will be very useful for the segregation of patients in emergency wing of GMC Jammu. A 24/7 COVID control room have been set up for redressal of the grievances related to COVID-19 positive patients admitted in the associated hospitals of the Government Medical College Jammu and the Government Hospital Gandhinagar Jammu.
In Madhya Pradesh, the number of COVID-19 cases has climbed to more than 1,17,000 after 2,227 new cases were reported in the last 24 hours, with 30 patients succumbing to the infection. The death toll rose to 2,152. A report.
As per the State Health Bulletin, 2,743 coronavirus patients were discharged from the hospitals in the past 24 hours, taking the number of recovered cases in the state to around 93,238. There are now 22,198 active cases in Madhya Pradesh. The recovery rate has further improved and reached up to more than 74%. More than 19,29,000 tests have been carried out in the state till date, out of which 25,603 tests were carried out yesterday. In a district-wise review of corona infection, the highest 436 new cases of COVID-19 have been reported in Indore, followed by 277 cases in Bhopal, 212 in Jabalpur and 151 cases in Gwalior. Sanjeev Sharma, AIR News, Bhopal.
With doctors and experts from the medical field stressing on wearing masks to protect oneself from COVID-19, the Kolhapur district administration in Maharashtra has gone a step further and said those who are not wearing masks should not be allowed to enter office premises and shops. Our Mumbai correspondent has more details.
The Kolhapur district collector Daulat Desai is for all praises from Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray after he made wearing mask mandatory for people while gaining access into the offices and also while entering shops to purchase goods. The CM opined that the initiative should be implemented across the state, which would help in breaking the chain of the virus. Chief Minister Thackeray has also censured those who do not wear masks and go out in public. He said such careless attitude by some individuals is resulting into the rise of viral infection. It has come to notice that some people are following the norms and people are entering the shops only if the owners and his employees are wearing masks. Simultaneously, those people who are found not wearing the mask are not allowed inside the shops. Besides, the administration is also resorting to seal the shop for 8 days of owners who are found not wearing masks. Kunal Shinde, AIR News, Mumbai.
Ahead of the monsoon session of the Odisha Legislative Assembly from the 29th of this month, adequate arrangements have been made within the Assembly premises for the COVID-19 test of all the stakeholders. The 3 days of testing, which begins today, is meant to screen ministers, MLAs, journalists, security personnel and the Assembly staff before they enter into the Assembly. The session would run till the 7th of next month.
Entry into the Odisha Vidhan Sabha for the short duration session has been made conditional upon the ministers, MLAs and others testing negative for COVID-19. The seating arrangements inside the Assembly is also modelled upon the recent Parliament session in terms of the preventive protocols. While MLAs would be accommodated in the Visitors Gallery and the Speakers Gallery beside the Assembly Hall to ensure social distancing, each seat will have a transparent seal erected at the front to minimize the risk of droplet transmission. Besides, adequate sanitizers and measures are also in place for the smooth conduct of the 8-day session beginning next Tuesday, the first one to be conducted amidst the challenges thrown by the novel coronavirus. Girish Chandra Das, Bhubaneswar.
The Uttar Pradesh government has announced to run the family planning program in a mission mode. State Health Minister Jai Pratap Singh said it will reduce the mortality rate among infants and women and will also expand the health facilities. Today, being World Contraception Day, many events are being organized across the state related to family planning. More from our correspondent.
In almost all districts of a state, Health Department is running awareness programs related to family planning in rural and urban areas. Teams of health workers led by Chief Medical Officer and other senior officers in districts are organizing camps to provide information to the public, especially the young ones. Government said that every woman and girl should have access to the contraceptive method of her choice. Today, especially on World Contraception Day and on any other day, state government works to ensure access to safe, voluntary family planning services. Speaking in a webinar organized on the eve of World Contraception Day yesterday, Health Minister Jai Pratap Singh said that Uttar Pradesh government has ordered to provide all contraception-related facilities to every beneficiary. Sushil Chandra Tiwari, AIR News, Lucknow.
The mortal remains of the legendary playback singer S.P. Balasubramaniam have been laid to rest with the Tamil Nadu State Police honours. The burial took place in his farmhouse at Thamaraipakkam in Tiruvallur district, some 45 kilometres from Chennai, this afternoon. His son, S.P.B. Charan, performed the rituals. Thousands of people bid him farewell, choked with emotion. More from our correspondent.
When the mortal remains of the legend was kept at his Chennai residence yesterday, several leaders and film personalities paid him last respects. The police had a tough time in regulating the unceasing crowds of people who gathered there to have a last glimpse of the veteran singer. Later, when the van carrying the casket moved to the farmhouse, thousands more lined up along the road and showered flower petals. At the farmhouse in Thamaraipakkam, the public were regulated to control the crowds. His son S.P.B. Charan led the last rites. After the Purohits performed the rituals, the ceremonial police paid the 72-gun salute and the mortal remains of the legendary singer were buried. More than 3 generations of people grew up by listening to the songs in the sweet and magical voice of the great legend. That was S.P.B.
Pehla pehla pyar hai, pehli pehli baar hai.
ocean of music has stopped its waves. However, the musical waves he has created will reverberate in the ears of millions of people for hundreds of years to come. Jai Singh, AR News, Chennai.
In view of early arrival of paddy in the mandis of Haryana and Punjab, the centre has approved the commencement of procurement operations for rice immediately in both the states from today. The Consumer Affairs Ministry said this will ensure that farmers are facilitated in selling their produce at minimum support price expeditiously. The ministry said the Kharif marketing season for paddy is already scheduled to commence in all the procuring states from the 1st of October this year, and state procuring agencies, including FCI, are in a state of readiness for smoothly undertaking procurement operations. It said, due to early arrival of paddy in the mandis of Haryana and Punjab, the government has approved the commencement of procurement operations in the two states from today.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will share his thoughts with the people in the country and abroad in the Mann Ki Baat program on All India Radio tomorrow. It will be the 69th episode of the monthly radio program. It will be broadcast on the entire network of AIR and Doordarshan and also on AIR News website www.newsonair.com and News on AIR mobile app. It will also be streamed live on the YouTube channels of AIR, DD News, PMO and Information and Broadcasting Ministry. AIR will broadcast the program in regional languages immediately after the Hindi broadcast. The regional language versions will be repeated at 8 in the evening. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today greeted former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh on his birthday. In a tweet, Prime Minister Modi said he prays to the Almighty that Dr. Singh is blessed with a long and healthy life.
Today is the birth anniversary of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, who was a legendary educationist and a social reformer. He played a pivotal role in helping widows get remarried and fought for women's education as well as ending the stigmatized practice of child marriage. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar was a part of the larger social movement called Bengal Renaissance, which started with the enlightened leadership of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. His efforts to simplify and modernize Bengali prose were also significant. He rationalized and simplified the Bengali alphabet and type, and hence he is considered the father of Bengali prose. He received the title Vidyasagar from Sanskrit College, Kolkata, from where he graduated in recognition of his excellent performance in Sanskrit studies and philosophy. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has paid tributes to great social reformer and educationist Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar on his birth anniversary today. In a tweet, the Vice President said, a multifaceted genius, he is most widely admired for his crusade against child marriage and initiatives for widow remarriage.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has congratulated Council of Scientific and Industrial Research CSIR on its Foundation Day today. In a tweet, the Vice President said, CSIR laboratories are in the vanguard of scientific research in India and have played a pioneering role in nurturing talent and making country self-reliant in various technologies. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also greeted all those associated with CSIR on its Foundation Day. In a tweet, the Prime Minister said the Council is at the forefront of furthering scientific research and innovation in India. He said they have also been playing a valuable role in fighting COVID-19. The Prime Minister extended his best wishes to CSIR for its future endeavours. The World Bank has approved a loan of $200 million to Bangladesh to improve access to safe water and sanitation services in the rural areas of the country. The Bangladesh Rural Water, Sanitation and Hygiene Project will help 6 lakh people to have access to clean water through piped water schemes in rural areas.
U.S. President Donald Trump has vowed to end his country's reliance on China once and for all if voted to power. Addressing an election rally yesterday at Newport, Virginia, President Trump expressed disappointment that the post-coronavirus relationship with Beijing does not mean the same to him, as he would not forget the virus that came from China. He said the U.S. economy was doing great and was hit with this virus from China. The U.S. is the worst affected country from the virus. Over 200,000 Americans have lost their lives and devastated the country's economy, resulting in the loss of millions of jobs. The Trump administration is seeking to restrict the stay of Chinese journalists in the U.S. to just 90 days as against the 240 days general limit to foreign journalists. A federal notification issued yesterday said there will be provision for extension for a similar duration. The proposal of the Department of Homeland Security is part of the fixed time limit on visas of students, researchers and foreign journalists in the US.
Back home, the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, whose 150th birth anniversary is being celebrated this year, had spent 45 days at Nandi Hills in April to May of 1936. Nandi Hills is a small hill station near Bengaluru in Chikkaballapur district. Our correspondent brings us this report from the pages of history about the Mahatma. More from our correspondent.
हाई ब्लड प्रेशर का सामना कर रहे महात्मा गांधी जी को विश्रांति की सख्त जरूरत थी। तब उनके वैद्य डॉक्टर जी पाने की सलाह दी। रहने से उनका स्वास्थ्य काफी सुधरा। पहाड़ के नीचे बसे मादुका होसोहल्ली गांव में गांधी जी भजन में शामिल होते थे। इस गांव को आज गांधीपुरा के नाम से जाना जाता है। पहाड़ में जो बंगला है उसे गांधी निलया के नाम से बुलाया जाता है। आज इसे पर्यटकों के लिए खोल दिया गया है। इससे लगे बगीचे में महात्मा गांधी जी की एक सुंदर मूर्ति रखी गई है। सुधींद्र, आकाशवाणी। The physician of Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. Jeevaraj Mehta, had advised Gandhi ji, suffering from asthma and high blood pressure, to take rest at Nandi Hills. It is said that Gandhi ji rejuvenated while staying in the hills for 45 days. During the stay in the hills, Gandhi ji visited Maduka Hosohalli village to attend bhajans. As a mark of respect, the village is now called Gandhipura. The place where Gandhi ji stayed is called Gandhi Nilia, or the hills. It is today renovated by the tourism department, and tourists are allowed to stay in a portion of the building. The garden attached to the building has a statue of Mahatma Gandhi. Sudhindra, AIR News, Bengaluru.
Moving on to sports, in IPL cricket, Kolkata Knight Riders will take on Sunrisers Hyderabad at the Sheikh Zayed Stadium in Abu Dhabi this evening. Both the teams have lost their first matches. While SRH lost their first game of the season against Royal Challengers Bangalore, the Rohit Sharma-led Mumbai Indians defeated KKR, led by Dinesh Karthik. In yesterday's match, Delhi Capitals defeated Chennai Super Kings by 44 runs in Dubai last night. It was DC's second consecutive win in the ongoing tournament.
Now let us take a look at the weather today. The forecast for National Capital Delhi says it will have strong surface winds during daytime. The minimum temperature was recorded at 24 degrees Celsius and maximum is expected to be around 36 degrees. In Mumbai, there will be generally cloudy sky with light rain. Kolkata will have generally cloudy sky with 1 or 2 spells of rain or thunder showers. In the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, the minimum temperature in Jammu was 22, while maximum will be around 35. In Srinagar, the minimum temperature was around 10 degrees Celsius, while the maximum will be 26 degrees. Leh in Ladakh will have mainly clear sky, becoming generally cloudy towards afternoon or evening. The temperature is likely to hover between 11 and 20 degrees Celsius. In Gilgit, the temperature is likely to hover between 11 and 28. And in Muzaffarabad, generally cloudy sky with possibility of rain or thunderstorm or dust storm is expected.
And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India accords highest priority to Sri Lanka as part of India's neighbourhood first approach. Prime Minister to address United Nations General Assembly this evening. 4th edition of India-Japan Maritime Bilateral Exercise commences from today in the Arabian Sea. COVID recovery rate improves to 82.14%. And mortal remains of legendary singer S.P. Balasubramaniam laid to rest near Chennai with full state honours. We now bring you a rendition of Bapu's favourite bhajan Vaishnav Janato, sung by artists from Argentina.
Vaishnava Janato tene kahiye je pite parai jane re. Vaishnava Janato tene kahiye je pite parai jane re. Pare
And with that, we end the midday news.